As we look at Google Docs today, we are going to look at the equivalent of what is in Word's editing group. And so we are going to look at Find, which, boy, that is such a helpful tool. You never know, maybe you need to find a word that you used maybe too much in a document because, well, it's become your new favorite word. And so you'd like to see how many times you've used it, maybe even see if you've used it more than once in a paragraph, and perhaps replace that word with something else. Sometimes people change their names, businesses change their address or their name. Sometimes you find out that you've misspelled something and didn't even realize it, and so you want to go in and find and then replace with a correct spelling. There are a lot of different uses for find and replace, and Docs also gives us the ability to select more than a word, more than a sentence, but maybe select all or select things based on how they look, maybe all of the bold text, for example. So let's look at some of those tips today. Hi, I'm Terry, one of the Consumer Technology Specialists for Mid-Continent Public Library, and let's look at Google Docs and find and replace and select. To start off, let's look at using a keyboard shortcut that a lot of people know and use frequently, and that is Control F. So when I press Control F, on the right-hand side of the toolbar, it brings down this very little window where the box says Find in Document. So we just type whatever we want to find right there. So for example, maybe I want to type receipt. And as I type the word receipt in the upper right, notice that receipt started being highlighted in the document down below. And as I look at this, the very first instance of receipt, which is over here on the left, is a darker highlighting than the others. Well, what I can do is, as I look to the right of where I've typed receipt, it even tells me that it has selected the first of 4, and then to the right of that, I have an up arrow and a down arrow. So as I click on the down arrow, it shows me the second choice, and it's really receipt, and then there's an S after it, so receipts. And again, it now tells me that's 2 of 4. Click the drop down again. It finds the third choice here on the right, and then when I click the drop down again, it finds receipt in a different paragraph. And you could go through an entire document doing exactly that, typing in the word and then finding what you want. And in fact, let's say that you know that a very unique kind of distinctive word is on page 10 and you just happen to need to go to page 10 or maybe even page 11. And so you could type in that word, find it, and then that would help you navigate to that particular page. Well, to the right of those arrows, we have the 3-dot button. When I click on the 3-dot button, which is called More Options, it takes me to a Find and Replace dialog box, and notice that it's already picked up receipt as what I want to find, and then it's all ready to replace. Well, I'm going to close out, and let's look at another example. Now let's look at another way to find words within a document. And to do that, we need to go up to the menu bar to edit. Now notice that the toolbar doesn't really have a button for find or find and replace. This time we must go to the menu bar, go to edit, and then down at the very bottom we have find and replace, but notice that it has its own keyboard shortcut of Control H. So either way, going to the menu bar for edit, find and replace, or using Control H will get you the same results. So let's click find and replace, and look at that, it brings up the same dialog box that we saw earlier. Notice also that it has retained that previous search of receipt. And so you're always going to need to clean out a previous search and then do a new search. Well, in this case, I think what we're going to do is look for license. But let me move that dialog box to the right just a little bit here. And as I click in that box for find and type L-I, notice that it finds all of the combinations of L and I. Now at this point as I look, it finds license, but it also finds maligned and believe. But as I type the C, now it has definitely found license and license and license and license. How interesting. Sometimes if you have a fairly uniquely spelled word, you don't even have to type the whole thing. You just type enough that Docs can find the word that you are looking for. But in this case, I will go ahead and type even a little bit more. And it says that there are 8 instances here of license within this really short document. Notice also that it has already decided that for a default, we need to just ignore the Latin diacritics, which are basically those little special kinds of punctuation, I guess is what we'll say. So, well, actually that kind of looks like an umlaut to me, but any kinds of the special accents that are in other languages that we don't use in English. And so we're going to ignore those because, well, I typed this and yeah, I didn't use any Latin based language. So find license, and this time instead of the arrows that are going up and down, we have these buttons in the lower right for previous and next. So I could click on next because I see that the very first choice here is license in that first paragraph. Click next and it takes me down, oh gosh, almost to the bottom where I have license. Click next. I can find license again. Click next, find license. Now, where's the 8? Oh, look at that. And then down below, it finds license again and again and again. Now, if at any time this happens occasionally where you click next and you go, oh darn, I didn't see where that was, or maybe you click next and you didn't even mean to click your mouse, you can always go back to previous and go back up through the list to find the words that you want to find. Now let's look at another example, and we'll go back to our menu bar to edit and then down to find and replace. And again, it's retained our previous find. So we'll take out license. And this time, what we're going to do is type DMV. But I know there are a lot of people who don't really like to type caps. So even though DMV is capitalized, there's a chance that you might type just DMV lowercase. And so as we find lowercase, no problem. There are 2 instances, one at the top here on the left and then one down at the bottom. But sometimes that gives you a lot of results that you don't need. And it could be that you are looking for words that are capitalized, for example. So what you can do is come down below replace and go to match case. And I'm just going to click in that box. Now, isn't that just really kind of fascinating? So I said I want to find DMV. We know it's there twice, but now as we look at the results on the right, it says 0 of 0. And sure enough, nothing is highlighted in this document. And the reason why is we said we want to match the case. And it's matching the case of the word that is in the document. By the way, sometimes this is really helpful because later on when we look at replace, we might want to find something that has an initial cap, but it shouldn't actually. And so you could find the one replace it with the other, and it would really cut down maybe on all of this searching if you do this match case. Well, for us, we're just going to take out DMV lowercase and put in DMV uppercase. And now, because we're matching case, look at that. We again have those two instances of DMV. As soon as I take off match case, it again says, well, I don't care if it's uppercase or lowercase as long as the letter sequence is correct. So either way, that lets me also find 2 of 2. But match case can really help you hone in on what you're looking for. If you are familiar with Microsoft Office and how it uses wildcards, then you may be asking, well, where are the wildcards within Google Docs? And the answer is, well, Docs doesn't really use wildcards. What it uses is called regular expressions, and it's based on a totally different kind of logic and I guess chart for what those special characters are and what they represent. But however you use a regular expression could help you find a word that you're not quite sure is correct. And so you know maybe the beginning letter, the ending letter, but you're not sure how it's spelled in between. And that could happen because people have made up a company name. Maybe it's somebody's last name or even first name. It could be any number of circumstances where that could really help. But we'll just play with this to give you an idea of how that would work. So let's go to Edit, go to Find and Replace. And this time what we want to do is find all of the expressions, hopefully words, but maybe not, that start with a W and end with a T. And of course there are no words that are just WT. And then what we need to do is come down to where it says match using regular expressions. So we'll click that. And if you're not familiar with regular expressions, what we want to do is come over to the right to Help. And it walks you through find and replace like we're going to do today, but it also shows you at the very bottom regular expressions, and it says Google products use RE2, which again is just a different system for finding different kinds of phrases within a document. And you can see all of the RE2 expressions, and it gives you a link for that as well. What we are going to do is come down to where it says Common Regular Expressions and click that drop down arrow. And as I scroll down, then we can see that there are some ways that we could use different characters, usually punctuation of some kind, that can substitute for letters and numbers. So for our first example here, we're going to look at a period, and it represents any character in the given position where it is. So this suggests D period as the example, and then what matches it and what doesn't match it. So hopefully that will help you kind of work through some of these. But we'll go back to our example, and we're going to put in a period between the W and the T. And as soon as I do, we can see that we have 5. Let me move this over just a tad more if I can. Maybe not. Yep. And as I see that, so now I find width and another width. But as I go down, and let me just click the next button, you can see that it also found a blank. So it's new tags, but it's W space T. And let me go to the next one, which is know that. Again, that period stood for a space, and actually finds 2 words that fit that combination of letters. And then the last choice here is width, which is again W. The period found an I that would fill in, and then a T. So width might be exactly what we're looking for. Now let's do another example here where I can do RE, And it finds all sorts of REs combinations, whether it's within a word like presto or screwdriver or where, or it might even begin at the beginning of a word like research and required. And maybe I want to find that maybe just at the beginning of a word, and I think maybe the plus will let me do that. So RE, and then the plus after a character represents a search for that character displayed one or more times. I must confess that the explanations don't help as much as just trying the different symbol and seeing what results you get. But let's click next. So it is RE, but it's adventure at the end. And then let's click next, and evidently it's hidden over here. Reason, that's at the beginning of the word. Let's do next. Finds required, and then the RE at the end of required as well. Return at the beginning, adventure at the end. And so this RE finds exactly RE and nothing else around it, but it does find every word that has that potential for RE. We could also try the asterisk, RE asterisk, and it finds, well, 91, and again, it is finding not only RE, but it is finding just single R's as well. So it finds the R, it finds the RE, and that is something that you'll just want to work out, but we are going to close up and look at another example. We've been looking at find for the most part as we've looked at our examples today, but now let's go back up to edit and find and replace. So what this means is I want to find something and replace it with something else. Before I do that though, let's clean out that RE asterisk, and let's also take off the match using regular expressions. So let's say that I want to find computer, because I believe it's in there several times, at least two, and what I want to replace it with is PC for some reason, and I can say, all right, I can replace all, which would be easy enough to do. Let's do that. And now when I do a find for PC, you can see that I have two that I have replaced just that fast. It could also be that I think I have in here I went back to work. So let's see, work to the office. I went back to the office. Let me see if I put the in front of it. Yep, the office. And I've decided that I want to replace that with I went back to work. So in this case, I'm taking two words and replacing them with one. Well, first of all, let's start at the beginning here. Look to see where we have the selection. 6 minutes to get to the office. Yes, I would like to replace that one. Then it will take me to the next choice, drive to the office. Maybe I want to keep that the way it is, and so then I could just close out. So sometimes you might decide that you want to replace all, and sometimes you want to just go through the document, each phrase or each word at a time, and replace one at a time. Here's another really quick example of find and replace, and for this example I've found the two instances of DMV and made them lowercase, which we know is not correct, but we can go up to edit and then find and replace. We want to find the lowercase DMV and we want to replace it with the capitalized DMV. And we could, because we know DMV is very unique. There aren't any other words that would even come close to that particular expression, that we could just replace all, click that, and now we can see that both of those abbreviations are in fact capitalized. So sometimes that can save you a whole lot of work, and probably the bigger the document, the more time it saves you, instead of having to go through and read and find each instance of where something isn't quite correct and being able to replace it. Now let's switch gears a little bit and look at select. You can use Control A to select all of that document if you want to use a keyboard shortcut, or you can come up to Edit in your menu bar and select all, which again, as you look to the right, it shows you that that shortcut is Control A. So we could select all, and then you might decide that you want to change the line spacing, or you want to change the font for everything within that document. Now you can do some specialized kinds of finding or selecting as well. So for example, if I click here in my title and I do a right click, I can come down almost to the bottom where it says select all matching text, and I can click on that, and it finds this heading style, My Adventure, and selects all of that. Well, let's try something else here. I've added bold to some things within the document. So let me come to DMV, do a right click, and again select all matching text. And now it has selected, well, DMV, all, DMV again, and then the months that were also bolded. So if you are looking for a specific format within your document, and maybe it's like subtitles, which would be really nice in a long document, so that you could just find them, they'd be highlighted for you, and it wouldn't mean that you would have to read every line of text as you go through this huge document. Then that selecting and doing a right click, and again, you usually have to do a select. You can select all matching text, and that could be a great shortcut. To learn even more, visit mymcpl.org/online learning, where you will find online resources that include Universal Class, LinkedIn Learning, and Learning Express Library. Be sure to join us each week as we present a variety of tech topics. Each week we premiere 3 new videos. You'll be able to find them at 1 o'clock on Wednesday and Friday, or at 2 o'clock on Tuesday. You can find us on Facebook at MCPL 360, or if you prefer, be sure to subscribe to our MCPL MO channel on YouTube, where you'll be able to find our MCPL Consumer Technology Resources playlist.